No one on your team is ready to replace you. You know it, the board knows it, and neither one of you have said it to each other directly. Now I get why. The minute you raise it, the board thinks you're announcing your exit. The minute your staff senses it, the rumor mill starts before you've decided a thing. So the question just sits there, getting heavier and heavier. Each year, nobody touches it. But here's the part I didn't expect when I finally faced this myself. The real fear isn't who can do my job. It's who am I once this isn't mine to run. Both fears are real, and today I'm tackling both. I'm going to show you a completely different way to look at what your next leader needs to do and exactly where to start this process before the timeline stops being yours to choose. I sat on a board where this played out almost exactly that way. The executive director had been there 16 years. He had relationships with donors that went way back. Whenever his name came up, the room said some version of pretty much the same thing. Oh, what would we do without him? He just makes everything happen. He, this is why donors give. This is why we have this standing in the community. We said it in the parking lot after meetings. We said it over coffee before the meeting started. We even said it in the actual meeting. Then he got a call from another organization, and he hadn't gone looking for this offer. And he told the board chair on a Tuesday, and 6 weeks later, he was gone. What happened next was not really a search. A board member who never ran day-to-day operations stepped in as interim. 3 or 4 donors who he was the only one they ever talked to stopped returning calls. The program officer didn't know how to follow up with a major donor. Nobody planned that outcome. Nobody wanted it. We had just spent all these years admiring him instead of spending one afternoon planning what would we do without him. I've come to believe the silence in that room was really never about him, the exec. It was about something else, and most board members never name it. No leader is replaceable. Not really. The next person brings their own way of building relationships, their own instincts, their own ideas, their own leadership approaches. So that's not a loss. It's a new and different type of leadership from the current leadership. And this is how an organization keeps growing after its exec has gone, after you've moved on. So you see, the question is not who can do what I do. The question is, what does the next person actually need to solve? I learned that one firsthand. Years ago, I was asked to start a figure skating program for girls in Detroit. And my job was to get it off the ground, get the idea in front of people, find out whether or not this was a viable idea that would be supported, find the donors willing to bet on it, and find out whether it would actually work in our city. I went in thinking about my own exit because I realized that while I was totally excited about this opportunity and committed to it with passion and believed I could do it, I knew it wasn't going to be a long-term venture for me. So as I thought about who should come after me, I realized the next person wouldn't be solving the problems that I was facing. My problem was getting something brand new off the ground. Their problem would be keeping it running and funded and growing it and turning it into a program that was more than being on the ice. It was something bigger, a leadership program for girls. That person did not need to be me. They needed to be the right person for a completely different chapter. Once I saw it that way, the question stopped being, well, who is my replacement? And the question became, what does the organization need next? That is the shift that separates a leader who leaves well from a leader who leaves a gap behind them. And you know something else? It takes the weight off you. It's not your job to find your clone. It's the board's job with you to define where the organization goes next. So here's where you actually start. First, and this is one that sometimes we dread, and that is bring up the subject of succession. Take the real numbers to your board, and this is not a personal announcement of you leaving. Only 1 in 5 nonprofits actually have a written succession plan. Now, if you don't have one now, that doesn't mean that you did something wrong. It's a reason to act now. Put it on the agenda the same way you would a budget shortfall or some challenges with a particular program, something the board looks at, thinks about, gives you some direction, makes policy decision, not something that signals you already out the door. Second, decide what the next chapter actually looks like, what the organization the next 3 to 5 years actually needs. And it's not a copy of you. Sit down with your board and name the real situations, the real problems the next leader has to solve. Figure out the donor relationships, remembering that it's so important to connect those relationships to other people within your organization, not just connected to you. And I also want you during this time to look deep and hard in the people already in your organization. Whether you have just a few people or you're a big organization, look at the potential within. Sometimes it's not for that top seat, that number 1 position, but providing the opportunity for advancement, different assignments, development for any and all of your employees should be on your agenda anyway. As you're looking within the organization, look at how to develop that bench strength. And remember, one of the best answers to no one is ready to replace me is to make somebody ready. Third, start handing off what is in your head and give yourself some real runway to do it. The biggest risk in most transitions is not the org chart. It's the donor history, the unwritten relationships, the reason certain decisions get made, all of it in one person's memory. A good transition usually takes somewhere between 6 months and a few years. That time is not a countdown to your last day. It's a building period for the organization and for you, because what comes next for you personally is part of this too. You're not heading out the door. That's not what we're talking about. You want to keep making a difference, and you want to be intentional about what that difference looks like when you're gone. The organizations that come through a transition well almost always have one thing in common. Someone started the conversation while there still was time to do it on purpose. Not when the exit was already announced, not when the board was nervous, early enough that none of it had to be rushed. This is the work I do with leaders, people who do not see an obvious next leader yet want to make sure the place is stable and the mission is intact, and who are also quietly sitting with that other question, what comes next for them? I've sat in the executive seat for this, and I've sat in the board seat and been in the room when this conversation did not happen in time. And I've been in the room when it did. So if you're sitting with no one is ready to replace me right now, this is the moment to start, not after you have already decided to leave. Now, a real succession plan protects the mission. It also protects you, your name, the relationships you've built, the years you've given. Now, there's one relationship a plan on paper does not fix by itself. The donors who've written checks for 15, 20 years did not commit to your org chart. They committed to you. What happens to that the day you walk out is exactly what this video covers. Click it and I'll show you right now.